Okay, so have you ever like sat down and thought about where money actually like comes from?
You mean like not just the printing part of it?
Yeah, like printing presses. I mean, that's cool and all, but
Yeah.
the whole system, like how did we even get to this point?
Well, the video you sent me, how banks magically create money, they start off by going way back before money even existed,
Oh, wow.
which is kind of cool because you really take it for granted. Like
Yeah.
you never really think about it.
Right.
It's just there.
And I've been trying to like get through the day.
Oh my God.
Without money, like in the video, they talk about the farmer and the tool maker.
Yeah.
Like, the farmer wants a new tool, but if there's no money, he has to find a tool maker who's willing to trade for something he has,
Exactly.
like grain.
Yeah.
What if the tool maker doesn't need grain? What if he needs new shoes?
Right. Then you got to find a shoemaker who wants grain and trade for shoes and then trade the shoes.
Oh my God.
That's a nightmare.
That's the whole side hustle.
Bartering is just not efficient at all.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we needed something better.
So I guess that's why people started using things like cattle or salt,
Mm-hmm.
like as a common thing to trade with.
Right? Something that everyone needs or wants at least.
Right.
But I mean, can you imagine like carrying around a giant sack of salt every time you go shopping?
It's like forget your wallet, you left your salt at home.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense why people started using coins then,
Yeah.
especially gold and silver.
Right, because I mean, gold and silver, they have value on their own.
That's a good point. That's actually a really important distinction.
Okay.
Because like our money now, it doesn't really have any inherent value.
Right.
It's just paper or like numbers on a screen.
That's true.
But back then, those gold and silver coins, they were valuable just because of what they were made of.
So how did we get from carrying around like actual gold to this system we have now?
That is a great question, and that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
So the video, it talks about these goldsmiths in London back in the 1600s. These guys had vaults where people could store their gold safely.
For a fee, I imagine.
Oh yeah, of course they weren't doing it out of the kindness of their heart.
Of course not.
So people would store their gold and then they'd get a receipt, a promise note saying they could come back and get their gold back.
So basically, instead of carrying around a bunch of gold, you just carry around this note.
Exactly, way more convenient.
That's smart.
And then these goldsmiths, they started noticing something interesting.
What's that?
Not everyone was coming to get their gold back at the same time.
Oh, right.
So they had all this extra gold just sitting in their vaults.
They're probably thinking, what can we do with all this gold?
And a light bulb went off.
Okay.
Why not lend out some of this gold?
Wait, but it's not their gold to lend.
Well, yeah, technically, but they figured, hey, not everyone's gonna come asking for their gold all at once.
That's pretty risky though, isn't it?
For sure, it was a gamble, but it's actually how banking basically started.
Wow.
It's called fractional reserve banking. The whole system is built on trust.
So like when I put money in my bank account today,
Yeah,
the bank's probably lending out some of that money to other people.
most likely, yeah.
So my money, it's not really just sitting there, it's more like a promise.
Exactly. You have a claim on that money, but the bank doesn't necessarily have all of it on hand at any given moment.
Huh. That's kind of trippy when you think about it.
It is, right.
So with this lending out money thing, does that mean that banks are like creating money?
That's what the video gets into next.
Okay.
They call it the money multiplier effect.
That sounds complicated.
It's a bit mind-bending, but basically it means that a single loan can actually increase the total amount of money out there.
But how does it work? Where does the extra money come from?
Okay, so let's say you deposit $100 into your bank.
Okay.
The bank, they have to keep some of that as reserves, maybe like 10%,
Right.
but they can lend out the rest, so that's $90.
Okay.
So now someone wants to start a business, and the bank lends them that $90.
Okay, so far so good.
So that business owner, now they have $90 to spend. Maybe they buy supplies or equipment. And the people who they buy stuff from, they deposit that money into their own bank accounts.
Right.
And then those banks lend out a portion of that money and so on and so on.
So it's like a chain reaction.
Exactly.
Each time money is deposited and lent out again, more money is created.
Yep. And with each transaction, value is being created.
Yeah.
The business owner is buying supplies, creating jobs, contributing to the economy.
Yeah, I get it.
The video makes the point that this ability to generate new money through lending can actually be a good thing.
So creating money out of thin air can actually be beneficial.
Kind of seems counterintuitive, right?
Yeah, I always thought money had to be backed by something real.
It's not as simple as we tend to think.
Definitely not.
There's a lot more to it than meets the eye.
That's for sure. This is already blowing my mind, and we're just getting started.
Yeah.
I mean, it all sounds pretty cool, but it also sounds kind of risky.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, how much money can you actually create this way before things start to get out of hand?
Well, that's the thing, right? There are definitely safeguards in place, but like anything, there are risks.
I mean, if everyone suddenly had a ton of money, wouldn't everything just become more expensive?
That's exactly one of the risks, inflation.
Too much money chasing too few goods. Classic.
And when inflation happens, your money doesn't buy as much.
Yeah, your money's basically worth less.
Exactly, which is why central banks like the Federal Reserve are so important.
So they're like the referees of the money game.
In a way, yeah, they can influence interest rates and how much money is actually circulating.
Trying to keep things balanced so the economy doesn't go off the rails.
It's a constant balancing act, for sure.
It sounds stressful.
It probably is, yeah.
So we've been talking about how banks create money by lending. But what about governments?
Oh, yeah. Governments play a big role, too.
I mean, they spend money, right? So where does that money come from?
Well, the video talks about government debt and the bond market.
Bond market sounds intense.
It can be, but basically governments often spend more than they take in through taxes.
Right, which is called what a deficit.
Exactly, and to cover those deficits, they issue bonds.
So they're basically borrowing money.
From individuals, corporations, even other countries.
So those bonds are like IOUs from the government.
Yeah, basically promising to repay the money with interest.
But if they're always spending more than they take in, isn't that kind of a problem?
It can be, yeah. If debt gets too high, it can be hard to manage.
It's like maxing out your credit card.
That's a good way to put it. And the interest payments just keep piling up.
So you're basically stuck just trying to make the minimum payments.
And you can't really spend money on other things.
So it's like a vicious cycle.
It can be, yeah. And that's what the video brings up towards the end.
Okay.
What if instead of just using money to cover debt, we focused on using it for things that actually boost the economy?
Like investing in new technologies or businesses.
Exactly, or education or infrastructure.
It's kind of a shift in perspective, isn't it? Instead of just trying to stay afloat, we could be using money to actually move forward.
Right, instead of just managing debt, we could be investing in the future.
And wouldn't that lead to more economic growth in the long run?
Potentially. Yeah, the idea is that by investing in things that increase productivity, you create a more sustainable economy.
So it's like planting a seed instead of just watering a dying plant.
Exactly. You're nurturing growth instead of just trying to keep things from falling apart.
This is making me think about money in a whole new way.
It's definitely more than just dollars and cents.
It's a tool that can be used to build a better future.
And it's up to us to decide how we want to use it.
Yeah, it's like we get so caught up in the day-to-day, like paying bills and stuff,
Yeah, just surviving.
that we don't really think about the bigger picture.
Right, like how money can actually be used to make a real difference.
So going back to the video,
Yeah.
they asked, like, what could we actually change to make the system better?
Like, how can we use this whole money creation thing to do some good in the world?
Right, instead of just focusing on debt, what if we focused on, like, innovation or education?
Right, those are the kinds of things that can really have a long-term impact.
Yeah, like build a better future.
Exactly.
It's not an easy question, though.
No, definitely not.
There's a lot to consider.
It's a complex system for sure.
But at least the video gets you thinking about it.
Yeah, that's the important thing.
It's like a starting point for a bigger conversation.
Right, and it's a conversation we all need to be having.
Yeah, it's not just for economists or politicians.
It affects all of us.
So what do you think about all this?
What stands out to you?
What are you still wondering about?
Maybe this deep dive has got you thinking about your own finances.
Right, or like the economy as a whole.
Whatever it is, keep learning, keep exploring.
Yeah, don't stop asking questions.
The more you understand about money, the better equipped you'll be to make good decisions.
For yourself and for the world around you. This whole deep dive has been really eye-opening for me.
Yeah, me too.
It's like demystifying this whole system.
Money can seem so complicated, but it doesn't have to be.
It's really all about how we use it.
At the end of the day, it's a tool.
And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad.
The choices we make today will shape the world of tomorrow.
That's a powerful thought.
It is, right?
So keep learning, keep questioning, keep pushing for a better future.
We all have a role to play.
This is just the beginning.
The journey continues.